Hello YouTube. A number of territories in Russia have their own unique place, covered with secrets and legends. There are several such places in the Primorsky Krai, or the Maritime province, in the far east of the country, and one of them is Pidan Mountain. Unlike many other places, Mountain Pidan, in addition to legends, contains undisputable evidence of the presence of an ancient civilization with a rich culture. Pidan Mountain got its name in ancient times, the old name Pidan, supposedly of Chinese origin, formed by the components P, great or large, Dan means rocks, that is big rocks. There is a myth that in the Jurchen language, the name means stones strewn by God, or rocks strewn by God. The name was given to the mountain due to the kurums, stone screes, covering a significant area of the slopes, as well as the peaks themselves. According to legend, it was named so by the priests of the state of Bohai, but it is possible that the mountain received such a name long before the Bohai people. Pidan, now known as Mountain Livadiskaya, is located in the Shkatovsky district of the Maritime province. It is the highest peak of the Livadiskaya ridge of the southern Sikhote Alin, from which in clear weather it overlooks the entire coast of the Primoria, or it's another name for the Maritime province, from Nahodka to Slavyanka. Its height is almost 1,333 meters, and at its foot is the village of Lukyanovka. According to the legend of the creation of the mountain, this place is forbidden for ordinary people to visit, but thousands of people actually go to the mountain nowadays every year, and really nothing bad happens to them. Maybe during the time of the Bohai Empire, something very valuable was stored here, and therefore horror stories were invented so people would not go to Pidan. How safe it is today? Well, let's see what is known. It's not just a mountain. It's myths, unanswered questions, and legends. Look, it's considered to be sacred and mysterious. The mountain is overgrown with legends about miraculous phenomena. In one of the legends, it is written, at the beginning of the century of changes, when an altar will be erected on Pidan, the mountain will close, the last link in the ancient magical chain. My former colleague, Rempel, he was an explorer, historian, among other things, formerly of Vladivostok, now of Kaliningrad, mentioned that in the Narbor prophecy handed to him in the fortress of Montségur, located on the territory of France, and I'm sure some people know the significance of it. You can look it up in my other videos. It was written that in the 21st century, the center of magic will be located in a place with coordinates of 133 degree longitude and 43 degrees latitude. And these are the coordinates of Mount Livadiskaya, also known as Pidan. Alexander Rempel believes that the coordinate lines will close and the cosmic chain will close. Planes and helicopters do not even fly over the mountain because, according to rumors, megalith stones, which are in large numbers here, interfere with normal flight patterns and the flight itself. It was assumed that the stones emit waves that interfere with navigation. Different sources write different stories, try to prove what can be proved, but there is not really that much verifiable information about Pidan. The mountain really is a mystery. The proven fact is that there is an underground lake somewhere in the depths of the mountain. It is from that mountain that rivers originate, and the water of them is the purest and tastiest. More about it later. But again, the mountain apparently, its megaliths radiate ultrasound and electric waves. Also, near the entrance to the cave, there is an idol guarding the mountain. The height of the cave is 2 meters. Passing through it, you can go to the underground lake, which is famous for its healing power. At the top of the mountain, there is a stone on which runes of desires are drawn. Whoever rises to the top and touches this stone is supposedly guaranteed fulfillment of desires, but again, reportedly, you cannot stay on top for the night alone. According to ancient manuscripts, the one who will stay the night alone on the mountain will encounter death. The mountain, as I said, got its name from the Georgian tribes who lived here in the 11th to 13th century. And in some interpretation, it means stones poured by God, and in others, rocks strewn by God. There are plenty of stones or rocks here. While climbing, you will have to move along the Kurumnik, encountering bizarre rock outcrops on the way. Kurumnik is a geological term meaning sharp angled stone blocks formed naturally and having the appearance of a closed, undifferentiated cover on the surface of the earth. And if in most cases the natural origin of certain forms is clear, then the mystery of the appearance of an unusual megalith located at the junction of 2 trails still remains unsolved. Someone says that the priests still gather at the top, arranging sacrifices. Others appreciate water from this underground spring because of its healing properties. And the others believe that the ghost of a white woman and a flying man live or exist there. It is noteworthy that the famous researcher Vladimir Klavdievich Arseniev, whose books I've read from my youth on, and who suffered greatly under the communist regime, he described the legends, at least according to some of those who studied the phenomenon in Russia. This legend or myth or account says that the flying humanoid is a woman in a white robe, pale-faced. She screams very loudly and unusually terribly when danger is approaching. According to many descriptions, again, she is a blonde woman with a very pale face of the European type, dressed in white clothing, emitting a terrible scream if she feels threatened. Psychics claim that this is true. A woman is a spirit who protects the Pedan mountain. These testimonies should be taken seriously not only because the authoritative researcher Arseniev spoke about the flying humanoid, but also because there was an expedition reportedly to Pedan in the mid-1990s of American journalists. They were shooting a film about the secrets of Pedan on the top of the mountain, and they managed to capture a flying man on film for a minute. The film documentary was shown on the U.S. television, reportedly. It seems that there is even a moment of flight of a white woman captured on video by the Americans, but alas, they only talk but they do not show. That's another opinion. Then there is this rumor in Russia. The American film company Paramount Pictures came to the Primoria in 1994 to shoot a documentary about the famous and unusual mountain Pedan. This film was shown on the national television channels of the United States. It has 17 seconds, during which you can see the flight of a flying humanoid, a person. So again, we're dealing with riddles and enigmas. Now, let me tell you something. In the early 1990s, Fate magazine published my article about the Russian flying man, we can call it humanoid, of the Far East. I have been researching this phenomenon for many years, as you will learn in my earlier video about the flying humanoid. See the link in the description to this video. Well, after the publication in Fate magazine, I started getting phone calls from various people who wanted more information than was in my article. Sometimes demanded it, using all sorts of ways to find out if I knew more. I explained what I know is in the article. It's out in the open, published in a very popular paranormal phenomena magazine in the United States. Now, I very much doubt that those who called me were TV documentaries producers in this case, or, among those who basically hounded me. I very much suspect there were people who wanted to capture the flying man. But again, it's just my guess. I do want to add, however, that some of my files and a very interesting, unique magazine issue from one of the African countries had disappeared when the earthquake damaged my home and I had to leave it per the city orders. But there was nothing in the files that would release more about the flying man than what I told in my article. Maybe some billionaire had a fantasy to capture the creature for his or her private zoo. Look, in my travels, I have heard rumors of cryptic, wealthy collectors of the Forteana objects, archaeological artifacts, and cryptids. Russia was in a great disarray in the 1990s, so it's possible someone with enough money might have wanted to capture the flying cryptid. I do not recall if I was ever interviewed about this subject. Back then I mostly did sightings, TV show appearances, and mostly about Russian UFOs. And I'm sure there were other programs. So I do not know about the so-called American expeditions to the area and whether there was a documentary. But I did publish a number of articles in Fate magazine from early 1990s to mid-2000s and sometimes later, like the one about Amazons in Eurasia and so forth. But let's get back to the Primorye. In his notes, Arseniev also mentioned stories about the people who came from the Golden Valley. These people made magic mirrors which were searched for by another, no less famous traveler Nikolai Mikhailovich Przhevalsky. I will add the link to my video regarding Przhevalsky in the description to this video too. I think you will find him to be a fascinating person, and his alleged son was a very well-known historical person. By the way, rumors have it that even Tsarevich or Prince Nicholas was interested in these finds that Arseniev allegedly mentioned. Tourists, while climbing the mysterious Pidan mountain, believe that the mountain can simply not let in a traveler who doesn't like it, who doesn't like the mountain to the top. They won't let it, he will not allow it or she will not allow it to get to the top. So often travelers note that when climbing, they experience a feeling of inexplicable aggression, not only to others but also to themselves. The forces suddenly leave those who dare to conquer Mountain Pidan, meaning physical abilities to go on. Mysticism and mystery to this place is also given by the fact that Pidan has reportedly was the place where crews of helicopters and airplanes found their demise or died. On the slope of the mountains, one can still stumble upon the remains of fuselage and engines. In other words, there are about as many legends and enigmas here as there are rocks on the mountain itself, or stones. The mountain is not the highest, and has no sporting interest for professional climbing. Again, its height is just about 1,333 meters above the sea level. But to reach the very top, you need to exert physical strength and, most importantly, character and endurance. Even retired people can reach it, but it happens that sometimes even physically prepared young people do not reach the mountain. There's a hypothesis, again, well known, that Pidan doesn't let everyone in, although some who had climbed the mountain believe this is just an excuse. I read an account of a middle-aged Russian woman who twice climbed to the top of Pidan at different times of the year, and both times was sure that she would reach it, and she did. For the first time, climbing the mountain was on the wet snow. As soon as her group reached the stone bridge, the wind blew so strong that it literally blew away and penetrated through. The most unpleasant thing is that it was difficult to breathe in such a wind, and you fall into the snow every step, a meter deep, or even more if you get between two stones. But at the same time, her group reached the top, although the age category ranged from 30 to 58 years. And not athletes, they needed just a little bit of sports. They were doing just a little bit of sports for health reasons or for good mood. So they were not professional. The female climber mentioned in the interval of climbing, where the forest ends, the weather is very unpredictable. It may well snow in May, although they have already taken off their jackets, hats, and boots in the city. So it was cold. And the wind, strong wind, very strong. This is a frequent occurrence on Pidan. Therefore, it is very important to prepare for the hike. There are two paths from the village of Lukyanovka to Pidan. The first, named the Way of the Warrior, is a little to the right. It is shorter, but the steeper part of the way runs along the Kurumning. Here, in places, it is so steep that ropes are stretched for tourists, helping with knots, holding on to them. It is easier to climb. The second, the Path of the Magician, is located to the left, and it runs along the ridge of the mountain from the very beginning, and therefore it is slightly longer and less steep. Closer to the top of the mountain, both trails converge, and then the ascent goes along a rocky ridge. Just at the point of convergence, the nature of vegetation changes. The forest ends, and grass and shrubs begin. Not find from this point on the way to the top, you will find an unusual megalith. The hike begins from the village of Lukyanovka, about 7 kilometers from it to the mountain, to the foot of the mountain. There is practically no road to the foot of the road. In places, the path goes straight along the stream bed, but there are travelers who walk this interval on foot. It's not that pleasant. The tracks have mashed the mud so much that the climbers' feet get stuck, and they constantly need to move off the road to let vehicles pass. Before the start of the climb, of the ascent, climbers check clothing, shoelaces, who has a snack, if everybody has a snack, who needs to go to the toilet, etc. Then they move out. First, the path along the stream is not difficult at all, so a walk through the forest about 30 minutes. There's a lot of beauty. Beauty is everywhere there. The nature of Primoria, the Maritime province, is gorgeous. One of the really beautiful places in Russia. The first mystical place climbers encounter is the circle on the ground that is reportedly never overgrown with grass. This is soil, earth, not concrete, not asphalt, but just earth. Literally 2 minutes from the circle deep into the forest, another miracle is the talking yew, a species of evergreen trees also known as Taxus patkata, according to legends. You need to stand inside the tree. It is hollow, and with pure thoughts ask a question to the tree mentally, closing your eyes and leaning your head against the tree. The you should give you an answer. It's questionable how deep you can go into the forest, and we'll get into this. Climbers begin to encounter unusual stones along the narrow and steep path leading to the peak of Pidan, but they cannot be seen if you go the other way, so many tourist climbers do not know about the megaliths. In the beginning, these are just ordinary stones, of which there are thousands, but as you climb higher, you come across stones with patterns, and you also encounter a destroyed dolmen. It is unknown what the dense forest on both sides of the trail hides behind it. Rarely does anyone venture more than actually a few meters away from the trail, fearing to get lost lag behind their comrades, or even worse, to be bitten by a poisonous snake, a mussel, or a viper, of which there are a lot in the area. A huge triangular slab it comes out of the ground. Its sides are about 1.8 meters long, and the height is about 50 centimeters. There are 4 stones about 30 to 40 centimeters wide on it. They serve as a support for another block weighing about 2 tons, having a rectangular shape with faces of about 1.5 meters in length. In appearance, the stones resemble fragments of granite, but it is possible that this is a crystalline slate which is characterized by such smooth folds. The upper and lower plates are located almost parallel to each other. Everything seems so smooth that you wonder how this is even possible. Is it really mysticism? However, there's plenty of mysticism surrounding the mountain itself. It is rumored that those same megaliths once had religious significance. There is a hypothesis that these huge stone structures scattered on the mountain are nothing more than man-made masonry of religious buildings of an ancient unknown civilization. Others attribute some kind of religiosity to them, noting that the priests offered prayers to their gods at these structures, and not just by chance. The Maritime province cryptobiologist Yuri Ufimtsov, in his book Mysterious Creatures of the Primorsky Krai, cites the story of Sergei Kruchenko from Anisimovka, who, while studying Pidan mountain, came across references to an ancient temple. There is an opinion that stones are also alive, only their life processes are much slower. Mountains, they're also alive. Every mountain has its own spirit, and every mountain, like every person, has its own purpose. Kruchenko mentioned that he started collecting information about unusual cases in Anisinovka after a TV broadcast about the flying man. At work, they began to ask him if he really believed in any of this. Of course, he said all of this is BS, but he did ask the local intelligentsia, educated people himself. Maybe that was real, and that's what the locals told Kruchenko. But there really was a temple on Pidan, small, but it was there. There is a description of this place in the diaries of Alexei Kurintsov, the first Russian scientist who climbed to the top of Pidan in 1923. In 1928, Kurintsov, as a member of the expedition of the Zoological Museum of the USSR Academy of Sciences, climbed the mountain again, where he came across an idol shrine in which travelers prayed before crossing the Livaydskaya Ridge. Could it be that the mysterious megalith at the junction of two paths is the very idol that Kurintsov described in his diaries? According to one legend, under this stone lies a Bohai priest who sacrificed himself to the ancient gods. His wife, when she found out about it, came to the mountain and killed herself. Now her spirit has become the protector of mountain Pidan, this white woman. By the way, if you stand on a certain side of the megalith, then you can see the top through a hole. There's a hole. It is likely that this structure could be used not only as a place of worship, but also for drawing up a calendar, since through this window you can see the sun and the peak of the same line on a particular day of the year. Somewhere under Pidan, there is a fresh lake. That's a reliable fact from which several mountain rivers originate, along which there are trails to the foot of the mountain. The water in them is very clean and icy, even on the hottest days of summer. Those who have tasted this water will forever remember its amazing taste. Water has healing properties, reportedly. At least it is known that no one has ever fallen ill after bathing in the icy water of the river, but on the contrary, remained cheerful for several days. Like I said, there are many legends associated with Pidan, but also those who climb the Pidan ridge must have seen the so-called Pidan wall. What is it, a unique natural formation or a real wall made of huge slabs? The Pidan wall is not a single rock formation. This is a cyclopean structure consisting of many stones or rocks tightly fitted to each other. The wall is not flat at all. At first glance, it seems that the laying of stones was done at random, but if you look more closely, you will see that the stones are very precisely fitted to each other, even if they bulge a little on the sides. That is, if the wall had a reasonable architect, then he or she certainly knew their job very well. The stones used to lay the wall clearly belonged to the same mountain. They were not imported from somewhere else, but mined here. The nearest possible place of extraction of these stones is the modern riverbed flowing out from under the mountain. Unknown builders somehow lifted these huge stones from the modern riverbed up the ridge. And this task was not an easy one. People themselves have a hard time climbing the mountain. And imagine what it would be like to drag in a pebble, so to say, weighing several tons. But the builders not only lifted the stones, but also competently laid them one by one. So, very suspicious persistence to some, involuntarily no less suspicious as the megalithic structures of Europe and America. Involuntarily, so to say, this is what is being recalled. When people look at the Pidan strangeness. And the strangest thing about the Pidan wall is its structure. The stones are fitted to each other with the highest precision. However, at the same time, they completely disproportionately bulge in different directions. And the stones themselves are treated in a strange way. You will not see smooth rectangles here. One side of the stone can be perfectly flat and the other will be slightly curved. One side can be cut at right angles and the other not processed at all. The theory about the artificial origin of the wall is partially confirmed by a detailed examination of the stones. Special attention should be paid to the signs on the stones. The most common sign on the stones of Pidan is the line. The lines mark a lot of stones, both along the wall and all over the mountain. As a rule, they are not drawn, but as if hollowed out on the stones or rocks. The lines are found both on individual stones and on the stones laid in rows. In addition to the lines and inclusions of other minerals on the stones of Pidan, there are also quite incomprehensible depressions. Most often such depressions are oval in shape. They are the so-called traces of God. But there are exceptions. It turns out that the stones were used for the construction of some rather magnificent structure. But where then is the structure itself? If you recall the stories about the caves of Pidan and the underground lake, then the answer suggests itself. The mysterious structure is located inside the mountain, and the mountain itself, in fact, is an artificial mound of stones, which, however, just corresponds to its name, stones poured by God. Thus, if we assume that the Pidan wall is someone's conscious creation, then by putting together all the available facts, we can determine the identity of the architect of the mysterious wall. It is possible that more than one architect created Pidan. There must have been a lot of builders, and to some researchers, they were definitely not human beings. This mountain was built by ancient beings whose names we do not know and are unlikely to ever find out. We also do not know how they managed to build this temple built of gray stone with unknown caves. There is a strong energy at the top of Pidan. Many people are, when getting there, are, so to say, rocking in different directions. Some are experiencing a great rush of emotions, from laughter to tears. When climbing to the top, there is a feeling of inexplicable aggression towards others and yourself. You can easily quarrel over a trifle. Things are different when descending. Joy, positive emotions. People want to sing songs and laugh. If you make a night camp at the top or at the foot of the mountain, dreams take on special significance. We already told you that healing water was found on the mountain, the medicinal power of which was known even in ancient China. This is indirectly confirmed by Chinese mythology. The Chinese had a legend about the northern magic mountain Gao Shan, from which the clear and cold stream Dita Xiang flowed, and life-giving moisture of which protected people from heart ailments. The good spirit of Dita ruled the stream. If you recall the wonderful properties of water from the underground spring of Pidan, then you might think about the truthfulness of the old Chinese myth. And isn't this mythical spirit of Dita the supreme, which is hidden by Pidan? Isn't this the kind of spirit of Pidan that people who climb the mountain turn to every day? Is there an underground dwelling of some ancient deity on Pidan at all, or is it just idle speculation of some researchers? Time will show. At least now the mysterious Lord of the Mountain or Master of the Mountain does not manifest himself in any way. This means that we still have a chance to solve the main riddle of Pidan on our own, if there is funding for researchers, basically, who want to do it. Because just climbers who come to visit the mountain, that's one thing. But serious research, I don't see any scientists rushing to do it. And I don't think at this point there are people in Russia, independent researchers with money to do it. Kosmopoisk, probably that organization could have done it years ago, but I don't think they can do it anymore. Well, to some it can be truly said that Pidan has not lost its sacred greatness. Everyone who ascends to its peak does it for the sake of his or her God. For some, actually, it is sport, entertainment, recreation. For some, it's history, mystery, and mysticism. And this is just one of the very interesting places in Russia and especially Far East that I want to tell you about. And of course, I will continue exploring reports about strange flying creatures from the Russian Federation, and I'll tell you more about them. I'm hoping to hear more. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. If you can support my research, you can do so in the links you will find in the description to this video. Thank you for your attention to my work. Please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and tell others about it.